You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is best-selling author and spiritual teacher Suzanne Giesemann. And we're going to be talking about her brand new documentary entitled Wolf's Message, which will be having a screening at the ILLUMINATE Film Festival that runs from May 1st through the 4th. So I look forward to meeting you in person at the ILLUMINATE Film Festival. Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love that we'll get to be there for that and see you.
Oh, yes. And you had you ever been to the ILLUMINATE Film Festival in the past?
I have not. I went to another film festival in Santa Barbara, so I'm familiar with the venue and the vibe. And I've been to Sedona, but now we get to put the two together.
Yes. Oh, so you came for the Santa Barbara International Film Festival?
I believe that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I love that film festival. So, well, wait until you go to this one. It's amazing. It truly is an amazing film festival. So I really want to dive into this film because I was just going, wow, the whole time I was watching it. I was going, unbelievable story. So for our audience, can you let them know what Wolf's Message is all about?
You bet. Wolf's Message is the true story of a young man named Michael Wolf Pasakarnis, his self-claimed nickname, who left irrefutable, profound evidence that he knew how, when, and where he was going to be killed, struck by lightning. And it did happen within a day of him leaving this evidence. And then he came back through me from across the veil with irrefutable evidence that was validated by both his loved ones here and an afterlife researcher at the University of Arizona with a message for all of us. And we tell that story and how my story of going from a Navy commander and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to doing the work of connecting people with those in spirit came about, and how it brought me together with Wolf and his parents, and what this means for all of us as souls.
There's so many tie-ins. When you watch this, you go, there are no accidents, right, in the world? I mean, because you already had lightning is the theme, which is also very interesting, the symbolism of lightning, and we can get into that a little deeper, because you also had a similar experience.
Yes, I have, unfortunately.
Go ahead. I don't want to give too much of the film away, but
Well, it's a large part of the film because people want to know, how did you go from being this Navy commander to doing spiritual work? And it's because my stepdaughter was also struck and killed by lightning. So there are several references in the movie that connect it all. And one of Wolf's messages is we are part of one big web connecting all that is. And this film really shows that.
It's unbelievable that you had that experience. So how did you go from, Navy commander, no nonsense, kind of when you're in the military, for sure. And then going on to become a spiritual teacher. So what led you on that path?
Well, we talk about it quite a bit in the film, and there are some scenes of me meditating, and it was my inner knowing that didn't come from any religious upbringing or any spiritual path I had been on at the time. I had none of that. I was that very left-brain military person, but when I saw Susan's body, I knew there's more. And so I started meditating daily, trying to connect with Susan myself, and we tell that story and show me meditating because that is what opens all of us up to experiences of a greater reality.
And had you been a person who meditated prior to her passing?
Not once. And yet, from the week she passed in 2006 till now, if I've missed 5 days of meditating, that's probably all it is. It's absolutely the most sacred part of every day.
I agree with you. I wake up every morning and meditate. I agree with you. It's the best way to start the day. And when you don't do it, you kind of do miss that you didn't do it that day for whatever reason. So I agree. But it looked like automatic writing. Is that what you were doing after you meditated?
Yes, that's the commonly known term for it. But for me, it's more like taking dictation, because true automatic writing is when a higher consciousness would actually move your hand and create the words. I'm really listening and writing exactly as it flows through me.
And what was the message that you got from your stepdaughter when you were doing when you started this process?
Well, the very first time she came to me so clearly, which took a while, and we talk about that in the film as well. The message was, "Hey, I'm right here. No big deal. I've been here all along, and it's finally time for me to reveal myself to you." But as I show in the documentary, I put her to the test, asking for evidence. And as someone who asks everyone I connect with across the veil for evidence, she did a really good job.
And how about your husband? Because he also was in the military too, correct? So when this happened, was he aware that you had started to do this, or was it a surprise to him?
He was very much aware. I said to him at the funeral, I said, "I'm going to connect with her. I'm going to start meditating right away." And in 2006, meditation wasn't so mainstream, but we were living on our boat at the time. And I would say, "I'm going into the aft cabin to meditate." And it sounded so different coming from me. I'm going to meditate. Didn't even know what I was doing, really. I just kept shutting my eyes and saying, "Susan, reveal yourself to me," not realizing that was a training ground. But when I started to get evidence from other people's loved ones who had passed, I still had not yet connected with Susan. I would share that with my husband, Ty. 26 years, Navy captain, destroyer captain. He's more left brain than I was. He could not deny the evidence I was receiving. So he has been on board and fully supportive of this journey from absolutely day one.
Amazing. That's amazing. Obviously, I would assume because you were able to connect with her that this brought peace to both you and Ty.
Hugely, hugely life-changing. And the fact that Ty was willing to come on camera and talk about how it changed his life speaks volumes, because he's a very private person when it comes to this. He has cried every time he's watched the film. And we're taking it on the road on tour, and we're going to watch about 30 times together. And I keep thinking, are you going to be all right with this? Because it's very emotional.
It is very emotional. I cried also. So, along with saying, wow, a lot. I also cried. Yeah. So that was the beginning for you. So then how did things move from there?
Well, as far as Wolf's message is concerned, I started speaking about connecting with higher consciousness and showing that all of us can learn how to do this. I'm not some gifted person with a special skill. I simply opened it up through my practice. So I teach people how to do that. And I was giving a presentation at Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach. And I told my backstory about my stepdaughter, Susan, being struck and killed by lightning. And a couple in the front seat reached over and gripped each other's hand. And that's the couple that's featured in the documentary. You see them right at the beginning. They're Wolf's parents. And that's how we came to know each other. I offered them a reading, and you even hear parts of that session twice in the film.
Right. And so they were drawn to you to come to that event because of your story of your stepdaughter being struck by lightning. Had they known that prior to coming?
They did not know. They were at this afterlife conference trying to find answers about their son. How could he have known? I won't give away all the evidence that he left behind, but it's very clear. His soul knew he was going to die by lightning and where it was going to happen, because he drew a picture of the exact spot and left some other evidence. Truly stunning. But the keynote speaker at that conference, I was not very well known at the time, was Dr. Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven. He was very credible, a neurosurgeon, and Wolf's stepmother, Beth, is a veterinarian. So she really was attracted by the science-based medical background there and went to hear him. And because I was also speaking, they sat there in the front row and didn't know anything about me or my story. And boy, I'll tell you, we've become dear, dear friends now because we have this incredible bond with the way both of our children passed with light.
Yeah, I can imagine. Are they also going on the tour with the film?
Well, Mike is going to that's Wolf's dad, is going to go to quite a few of the events. He will be at the film festival, the ILLUMINATE Film Festival in Santa Barbara with me and director Jim Spruell. But as you saw in the film, Beth has been struggling with a very aggressive form of leukemia, and it's very hard for her to travel right now, but she's going to make the local ones. And I'm just astounded that she's able to do that. She's really a strong fighter.
Yeah, you can see that in the film, definitely that she is. Do you want to get into some of the details of how Wolf's message? I mean, you're right. He had a knowing. I wonder if he always had known or whether this was a more recent knowing. Was that something that you were able to discover?
Certainly, from what he's shared with me and what his parents have shared, he never let on that he was going to pass early until the day before he passed. His father had visited him 2 days before he was killed, and Wolf was an artist. He drew on every single surface. You see it on the furniture in his house, it's painted. He drew on loose leaf paper, which is what he showed me in his reading so clearly, just papers everywhere. And he tacked them up all over his apartment. I'm so happy we have footage of his apartment because it's stunning.
It is. Yes.
His dad had toured his apartment. Every time he visited Wolf, he would walk around and see what's new. 1 month before Wolf passed, he looked at his dad and said, I'm done moving things around. Because every month he would rearrange everything, all the artwork in multiple rooms in his apartment. But he said to his dad, I'm done moving them around, but didn't explain why. That was probably the first indication, about a month before he passed. But like I said, his dad was there 2 days before he passed, nothing new. But when they got into his apartment after the coroner said this was not foul play, it was lightning strike, there was a poem tacked to a wall in a way that you couldn't miss it. And so we know that that was put there most likely the day before he passed. And it has a specific line about how he would be killed. And then it wasn't until weeks later they noticed the drawing also had the drawing of the tree along with what would be placed at the tree after he died. Oh, and that's just part of it, right? The way he set up the room, set up his apartment, what he said to his friend. Imagine your last words as you stand up from a table, just chatting with friends at a coffee shop, and your very last words on this earth are, I have to go now. And off he goes, and he was struck and killed.
It's just mind-boggling, and you're right that and again, don't want to give any, too much away because I want people to go see this film. They definitely want to go see this film. All of us have had people who have passed on, and this opens up the gateway for us to perhaps be able to communicate them and know that communicate with them and know that that's a possibility because that you teach that, right?
Yes. I have to tell you about timing though, Jan. Yesterday, I received an email 14 years after the time he passed from the woman who found his body where he was struck.
I just got goosebumps.
His parents didn't even know. They just heard from the police that a couple from North Carolina was the one that encountered his body. She was so affected by that. Every year she would do a search for his name and somehow didn't realize I had written a book called Wolf's Message. When she saw, oh my gosh, you're kidding, this book's been out since 2012. She got the book and read it and then found out there's a film about it now and reached out to me by email. And we connected by Zoom yesterday, face to face. I was really choked up because her description of finding Wolf's lifeless body in the park just took me back to people finding my Susan on the ground. And I knew how Mike and Beth were going to feel when I connected them with her. It's all very emotional. And yet, this is part of the message of the film is we know from how he's come back and so many others communicate through those who can sense them that he's not dead and gone, that we're souls, we live on, and we can continue our relationships.
Yes, yeah. And there's signs and symbols everywhere. I mean, my sister passed away this past year, and I happened to be on a hike with someone and we were talking about my sister, and I think I had just come back from it was prior to her memorial, and as we were walking, this beautiful butterfly flew right in front of us, literally in front of us, and who knew why I was hiking with her at that moment, but she knew everything about botany and butterflies and what plants and flora and all of it, and she said, that's a California sister. And I live in California. And I said, oh, that's, and then she showed me a picture of it. And I said, well, that's a sign, definitely showing me that my sister is free of her body and free 2 days later, I'm on another hike with someone else. They're from Korea, and they told me that in their custom, that if you see a white butterfly, it's the soul of someone who has passed on. I came home. I looked out my window, and there was a white butterfly. Now, how often do you see a white butterfly? So that was just reaffirmation on both levels, because I was thinking I wanted to communicate with her, and I thought, she's already told me, just through those types of things. So if we're aware, if we're open, we can get those messages, But I've heard your name has been. I've known about you for quite a while through dear friends of yours who you do cruises and other things, and they go every year, and they just told me all about you. So I was excited that your film was going to be at the Illuminate Film Festival, so I got the opportunity to interview you. Yeah, it's a blessing. Yeah.
We call it the Awakened Way community. I have a book called The Awakened Way, and we have people all over the world who really understand. And the Awakened Way teaching is based on the 3 basic truths that Wolf taught me. Number 1, and I share this in the film, it's the whole purpose. I said to the director, you have to work in the messages of the Awakened Way, that we are not only human. We always say that, oh, I'm only human. No, you're not. You're also a soul now. And we're part of this web of connections. And once you start opening to it, even realizing that loved ones can send a message through butterflies at just the right time with just the right name, that's the web. And number 3, that that which connects us is love. It's a vibration. It is the underlying tissue of reality. So those 3 things, when we can live in that awareness, it changes how we live.
Exactly. It does. And that's the message that's coming out over and over, even more right now, is love. Everywhere you just turn and somebody else is talking more than, maybe it's because, well, yeah, I think because of everything that's going on in the world right now, that's what we need more than ever, is to come from love on everything that we do and say and how we are, and try to be in that presence of love constantly, I believe.
That is another aspect that comes out in the film, that Wolf said we're out of balance as a species. He's all about balance, and his final poem had the yin-yang symbol, which is all about balance and harmony. And we're so much thinking about technology and business and human stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but we haven't balanced enough with the heart. Not just the heart that loves each other, but the heart that discerns truth, that knows that we are all connected. When we can balance the 2, then we find harmony in this life.
Yeah, and boy, do we need it. Yeah, even more so. It's the message that constantly, that everyone needs to hear and be reminded of on all different levels. That's why the Illuminate Film Festival is so wonderful, because this film that you're going to be screening and many of the others are going to continue to have many of those messages, and how we can help our planet and save it, hopefully save it from destruction as we go forward. But definitely. One of the things that I thought about when I was watching this is that Wolf, it seemed like he had a hard time in life being understood. And I want you to elaborate a little bit more about that. But when I was watching, I was thinking there's so many young people out there who feel that way. And I wonder if if it's because there is this duality, that they are living in 2 worlds at the same time, and do have difficulty maybe being on the earth plane because they're also on the spiritual plane. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Suzanne?
Absolutely. It's another one of the layers of meaning that people will take from this film. Number 1, that we're not only human. One we've also talked about is there's no need to fear death anymore. With Beth facing her cancer, she talks about that. So brave of her to come on camera and speak about her no longer fearing her demise, as she puts it. But the third one you just touched on is the fact that Wolf was, at the point I did the reading for Mike and Beth, the most powerful human who's just a regular family member that I had connected with. He had me stuttering and shaking. He was so loving. And we bring on friends who talk about what a loving person he was. And yet he didn't fit in. He said it was very busy in his mind. He couldn't shut off the connection with the higher realities. And I know that more people are more sensitive to energy nowadays than in the past. So there's a point at which we become imbalanced. We're looking for balance, and some people may be the filters in their brain are too open to the frequencies that are all around us, and that turns into chaos, and we can't operate at what we call a normal level. So Wolf was like that. He was different than many people, as you'll see in the film, and from his artwork you can tell he's not normal. But as he said to me in the reading, and I didn't know anything about him going into the reading because his parents were sworn to not talk to me about him, he said there was nothing wrong with my heart. And that's so important when we immediately judge people when they don't fit into a nice little box that we want to put everybody in. But look at what they're bringing to us in other ways.
Exactly. You know, again, going back to we're all connected, you know, the web, exactly what you're saying. I had a near-death experience. I'm not going to get into it, but I did. But I've never feared death myself. And then I had that experience, and I definitely didn't, you know, fear it at all. And I think it's important for people to, you know, to know that and know that message too. And that's what you're spreading with the work that you do. It's so important.
That's the goal.
So when Wolf's parents came up to you, how did it come about that you were going to try to connect with Wolf?
Well, I just spoke to them at the conference right after my talk, and Mike wanted to know, how did my son know he was going to pass? I didn't know what he was talking about. He had this drawing and this poem, but I was scattered with all these people standing around wanting to talk to me. And I, at the time, I just said, well, the soul knows things that don't always filter into our human awareness, but his must have come out in a way that he knew. And then I saw them at the hotel near the conference site the next morning, and I was propelled out of my chair, and I just heard, you're supposed to give them a reading. So I went up and offered them the gift of a reading and gave them my phone number, and we arranged that for some time later. And that's when we show in the film that he came to me in the early morning hours while I was in bed, day or two before the actual reading, and gave me all kinds of evidence about himself. And then in the actual reading, a lot more evidence. But some of the things didn't make sense to me or his parents. And it became kind of a mystery as we pulled the thread, unraveled the clues that led to ultimately what he wanted us to know.
What made you decide to make this documentary?
I knew from the beginning, this has to get out in a bigger way than just a book. Not everybody reads books. It's a story that has to be shared, and it's sensational by itself. So I knew one day we would have a movie, but I didn't know how it would come about. I had two people from Hollywood over the past 10 years or so offer to turn it into a movie, but Jan, they wanted me to hand over all rights, and they wanted to sensationalize it by having a good guy and a bad guy. And I said, no. This story is sacred. We have to make it 100% true to the facts. And we're not going to change people's personality or their roles. So luckily, we found the perfect director who was fully on board, Jim Spruell. His son, Dakota, is across the veil. He gets it. He's being inspired by Dakota and Wolf, as all of us have been. And he truly honored Wolf and the whole story.
Yes, he did a wonderful job directing this film. How did you find him? How did you attract him to this project?
That's a whole story that I'm going to be telling in person at the screening events, but there's no doubt in my mind that his son, Dakota, pulled off a really good and funny trick to get his father to reach out to me. And I said, look, this is a setup from your son. I'm supposed to give you a reading, having no idea he was a director of films. I did the reading. Dakota came through so beautifully. And Jan, it's so funny because he said, my name's going to be up in lights, premiere. And we didn't know what he meant by that. It made no sense whatsoever. It was months later that I realized Jim's a filmmaker. We have funding for a movie now. Let me see if he wants to do it. He was all in. And suddenly we realized now there's going to be premiere of this film, and Dakota's names are up in lights because he gets partial credit for the film.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, wow. Where can people, or at least where can people, if you can't make it to the Illuminate Film Festival, which will also be virtual too, right afterwards. This one's from May 1st through the 4th, but May 5th through, I don't have the date in front of me, but it is virtual for people to watch it afterwards. But you're going to be on this whirlwind tour with the film. So is there a website or somewhere where they can go and see if it's playing near a city near them?
It's up right now, wolfsmessage.com. The film is not live for viewing, but we're taking people's just their first name and email address. We will only email you to let you know it's now available online. You're not becoming part of a mailing list. So sign up if you want to be notified. But meanwhile, you can watch the trailer at wolfsmessage.com. You can see a behind the scenes photo gallery and read about the story and be inspired in advance.
Definitely. And we'll post all of that in our social media posting, so that'll all be there for everyone to look for. So definitely everyone, if, as I said, we've all had someone who's passed on, in our lifetime. And if you want to know whether you can connect with them, seek out this film and also seek out Suzanne's work. You're amazing in what you do. And it's such a gift that you were given and that you're giving to other people to help them feel at peace.
Well, I do it to honor our Susan and all those who just want to let their loved ones know we are still right here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I really appreciate you being on the show. It was a blessing, and I look forward to meeting you in person and seeing the film again and on the big screen. So
it's going to be amazing.
Yes. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much.